Hotel, room 314.
That's just down the street.
Come on down. Oh, come along, lad. We'll take you down. Easy, boy. Easy, boy.
Tonight, Group A first-round action continues with Switzerland versus Holland, live from Villa Park. With Switzerland holding England to a draw and the Dutch failing to score against Scotland, the outcome of this match will be eagerly awaited by both British teams ahead of Saturday's big game. Live and uninterrupted, Switzerland versus Holland tonight at 7:15 on BBC1 and Radio 5 Live.
A summary of the news at 11 o'clock now on BBC1 with Jill Dando. Good morning. An inquiry into the murder of a 3-year-old girl in Hartlepool 2 years ago has criticised the caring agencies that treated her killer, who had a history of mental problems. Rosie Palmer's body was found in Sean Armstrong's flat 3 days after she'd gone out to buy an ice cream near her home. Armstrong was jailed for life last July.
The time police took to discover the dead girl came in for severe criticism locally, which turned to anger when her body was eventually discovered in Armstrong's house, hidden in a cupboard. Rosie had left her home on the Headland estate just 50 yards away to buy an ice lolly before she was lured to her death. Hartlepool Hospital, which had been looking after Armstrong, is one of the targets of today's report. It concludes there were some inadequacies in his care, but it adds that even if they had not existed, Armstrong's behaviour could not have been predicted. The inquiry does not directly criticise the local authority which housed Armstrong on the estate, but it says that it is unfortunate that national guidelines are such that people like Armstrong are allowed to be inappropriately housed.
The Cabinet is expected to give approval later today for a judicial inquiry into abuse at children's homes in North Wales. The Prime Minister is said to be very concerned about the issue. It's thought he may also authorise a wider review of events at children's homes across the country.
The Welsh Secretary, William Hague, apparently set things in motion, persuading Cabinet colleagues of the need for a judicial inquiry into events at a children's home in Wrexham. Now the Prime Minister has joined the fray. He's said to have read the Riot Act over delays in tackling recent scandals. In Clwyd, up to 200 children were abused by a paedophile ring, but the problem extends far beyond there. In Leicestershire, Frank Beck was jailed for life for abusing more than 100 children in his care. In Dumfries and Galloway, boys were attacked at the Monklands homes. Paedophiles mistreated 61 children in Islington, and in Staffordshire, care workers were criticised for operating a so-called pin-down regime.
If there was the proper determination shown to find out what had gone wrong, then we would have found it out years ago. And even though it's rather late in the day now that the government has been forced to act, if it is indeed going to do that today, then I don't believe it's too hard to find the ways of protecting children much better.
The Home Secretary will shortly introduce plans for a register of paedophiles, so clearly the political will is there. However, police inquiries are continuing over alleged abuse in Cheshire, and this may delay the start of the national review.
Figures out this morning show inflation fell last month to its lowest level for a year and a half. Inflation in April went down 0.2% to 2.2%. It comes after the Chancellor, in his annual speech to the City of London last night, again emphasised his commitment to keeping inflation down.
Pressure to keep food prices down was one of the reasons for last month's fall in inflation. Competition between supermarkets led to smaller increases in the cost of groceries compared to a year ago. Cheaper mortgages following a cut in interest rates in March also played a part. The government's grip on inflation was one element of the Chancellor Kenneth Clarke's Mansion House speech last night. Although he gave an optimistic assessment of Britain's economic prospects, he warned that those calling for tax cuts to boost political support were misguided.
They're fringe backbenchers who believe that there's some easy populist thing I can do that would in itself win the election. With the British public, what wins the election is the belief that the government is competent, that it's running the economy in their interests, that it's helping to make their prospects for prosperity and jobs more secure for the future.
The regional electricity company Southern Electric has announced it's cutting prices by 4% from July. It's this kind of move which will help the Chancellor to keep inflation in check.
At least 3 people have been killed in a plane crash in southern Japan. The plane, belonging to an Indonesian airline, burst into flames as it was taking off from Fukuoka airport on a regular flight to Bali. Another 12 passengers are unaccounted for.
The DC-10 had just taken off from Fukuoka airport in southern Japan when it crashed. The plane then skidded off the runway, across a road and into a field where it burst into flames. Emergency services immediately surrounded the aircraft and started to evacuate the passengers. There were 261 passengers on board and 14 crew. The plane belonged to the Indonesian airline Garuda and was en route for the island of Bali. It appears that one of the main engines on the left of the plane caught fire. A large hole was also blown in the tail engine. The fire has now been brought under control, and all that is left is a charred wreck. The middle section of the plane has been entirely burnt out. Experts are flying in from Tokyo to establish the cause of the accident.
The Conservative MP Hugh Dykes has confirmed that he threatened a temporary withdrawal of support from the government in a row over the planned closure of a hospital casualty unit in North London. A second Conservative MP is reported to have made a similar threat.
This morning, Hugh Dykes confirmed that he and a fellow North London MP, John Gorst, threatened to withdraw their support if there was no reprieve for the casualty unit at the Edgware Hospital. The unit's been threatened with closure for a year, and now the MPs say they believe they've won their battle.
It wasn't resigning the whip, it was the possibility was raised of possibly withdrawing control support temporarily if the Secretary of State wasn't able to meet our very earnest and serious requests.
For John Major, this morning meeting his Italian counterpart, threats from individual Tories to withhold support or resign the whip are becoming a daily headache. Conservative Central Office confirmed this morning that talks had taken place between the Health Secretary, Stephen Dorrell, and the 2 MPs. It's expected there'll be some form of announcement later this month.
And that's it. More news at midday.
A very good morning. Now the latest news from the Midlands. Members of the biggest union at Birmingham City Council have started a one-day strike. Pickets from Unison have gathered outside some of the City Council's offices, effectively closing many services for the day. The action is to protest against a new sick leave policy and the threat of compulsory redundancies. The union claims 12,000 workers are taking part in the strike. An investigation's underway into a train crash in Birmingham, which the police say was caused by 2 children believed to be aged about 12. A mail train travelling towards Derby hit a dumper truck which had been parked across the line. The truck had been taken from a nearby road construction site. The transport police say one of the youths was seen driving the truck up the embankment and onto the track. The train pushed the truck 200 yards down the line, but was not derailed. The driver escaped unharmed. A Staffordshire company which has developed a new process of dyeing fabric has won an order worth £300,000. T&A Wardles, which is based in Leek, has managed to dye a new fabric called Tencel in much brighter colours than was previously possible. Now Marks & Spencer wants the fabric for its autumn collections.
Tencel is made from wood pulp, and while its properties make it attractive to fashion designers, it's very difficult to dye. T&A Wardles are the first company to crack this dyeing problem. Here in their new dyeing laboratory are some of their new colours, which let them produce reams of brightly coloured Tencel fabric. Now Marks & Spencer's has decided to buy 50,000 metres of the new fabric for its autumn collections. It's an order worth some £300,000. And the firm is confident that Marks & Spencer and other big high street names will buy much more of the bright fabrics, bringing millions of pounds of orders to the firm and safeguarding hundreds of jobs.
MPs from the West Midlands will meet today as part of a last-ditch attempt to host the Millennium exhibition in Birmingham. The Millennium Commission is having difficulty finding sponsors for the £500 million project, which it wants to stage at Greenwich in London. The chairman of the NEC has told the Commission that Birmingham still wants to host the exhibition, but says a decision is needed soon. And finally, today's weather prospects for the region. Dry, sunny and warm once again today, with some cloud increasing this afternoon. Highs around 20 Celsius.
Good morning to you. Well, good holiday making weather coming up over the next few days, but not so good if you're trying to get some water on your garden, because we're going to see virtually clear skies across southern Britain and some patchy cloud from time to time across the northern half of the country. Every now and again we'll see these pulses of cloud coming in from the Atlantic and just clipping those far northern parts of Scotland, but high pressure is certainly in charge for a while yet. Now we're seeing very clear weather this morning already, lots of blue sky around, just a few flecks of cloud here in West London, and that's fairly typical of the country as a whole. There is rather more cloud across Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland too, but it's going to stay dry, save for the odd shower just to begin with up around Shetland. And a good deal of sunshine to end the day. In fact, what cloud there is will melt away fairly quickly around about tea time. So temperature's not too bad at all, about 20 to 22 degrees. Lighter winds than we saw yesterday, if anything, but refreshing sea breezes developing around many of the coasts. Across the north, well, much nearer to 15 to 19 degrees there. And then a clear, cool night coming up, temperatures again dipping quite low, about 5 or 6 degrees. But there will be some patchy rain and drizzle perhaps just fringing those far northern parts of Scotland tonight. Friday, much the same sort of thing once again. Light winds, by and large, a good deal of sunshine to come, and broken sunshine, I would think, for many areas. And if anything, perhaps just getting a degree or so warmer. 22, maybe 23 degrees in the West Country. That's it from me.
BBC1 presents A Marriage Made in Hell.
You are the choice of the Prince of Wales, ma'am.
When I am Princess of Wales, I want to be loved by the people.
A war of words.
I won't go quietly.
A tabloid feast.
Everyone must pity the wife of an incorrigible wastrel.
And a princess with a mind of her own.
I will be divorced!
I don't believe it.
Surely not. Well, well.
There's no scandal like a royal scandal. Sunday at 9:20 on BBC1.
Back to this morning's film here in BBC One with Danny Kay in Knock on Wood.
He was kind, courteous, always obedient, cheerful, thrifty, pleasant, and that.